Yeah, of course.
enough. But
Of course, it's going to be only for Armenia.
Look in the viewfinder, you see
Yeah.
red on top and bottom, that means you're recording. Oh, yeah. You're in charge.
let us know when you're ready.
He's ready as far as I know.
Yeah,
Can we start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to sit down or?
Oh, I don't want to distract you, so I'll sit over here.
Okay.
Yeah, you look at me.
All right. My glasses are okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, don't look there. Look at me.
I look at you
Yes.
when I talk.
So, thank you very much, Ms. Chakarian. Can you tell us the story of your family? Please, let's start.
Shall I start where I was born? And
Can you start a little bit earlier from the genocide events?
Oh,
And
okay.
what happened to your parents, how they met?
Okay. As far as I know, my parents, they were from Adapazar, they call it vilayet, the villages. The villages of Adapazar, which is Haske, what did I say over there?
It's there. We'll
Yeah.
video it.
And then Ovacik, it's one of the village. And then they, okay, my father, as far as I know, my father was in the Turkish army. And then he just ran away from the Turkish army. He came back to the village. And when he came back to the village, he was married. He had a wife and 3 girls, 3 little children. But he didn't find them, many of them. They were all, lost. He didn't know where they were. So he didn't know what to do, and he started to come walking towards Bolis, Istanbul. And then when on the way he was coming, there is a village called Khaskal. So he met over there my mother. My mother met, so they got married, I guess, somehow, I don't know. And then they had first child in Khaskal. Her name was Hasmik. They put her name Hasmik. And then with their little girl, they came towards Istanbul. And this was in it could be Hasmik was born in 1920. So she was about 3-4 years old when they started to come towards Istanbul. So when they came as Kartagan, immigrants. They came as an immigrants all the way to Istanbul. I don't know how, but they came with a little girl. And they end up in Hasker Halacoglu in Istanbul. And it's called Golden Horn. It's a beautiful place. Anyway, they end up over there. And at that time, all the Armenians that they were refugees like this and they didn't have a place, they would be all put in a church, in a huge church, Superstepanos. It was in Halacoglu. And that church today, it's disappeared because they brought it down, because they built a bridge over there. Anyway, so they were there. And at that time, my mother was pregnant with me. So the story is that I was born in a church. So, I was born, and also they had to baptize me right away. So the church keeper, the doorkeeper or the Jangoch or whoever was there, he became my godfather. And then, so after that, they found a place in a little outskirts in Istanbul called Küçükpazar, which is a very, very rural place in Istanbul, and it's a very low-grade place. So anyway, over there, they got a place, which was I was born, and I was a little girl, I guess, I don't know. And then, of course, my sister was born. My younger sister was born about 3 years later. And then her name is Yevkine. So they had the 3 girls again. So anyway, at that time, they were very poor. They didn't have anything, of course, and they did whatever they could. I understand that my mother used to go in a rich people's house and wash laundry by hand and everything. And that's the way she used to keep us alive. And then my father didn't have a job. He looked for a job and everything. So anyway, my father got pneumonia. He got so sick, and my mother was so scared that something is going to happen to him. And she fed him anything she could. She tried to feed him. And she spared from us, and she gave it to him. So my father got better, a little better and better. And then, of course, this time, my mother got sick. She became so weak. And then she didn't make it. So they took her to the hospital. But when she was sick, apparently, the way I understand, we were very little. The neighbors, we had neighbors, Greek neighbors, I don't know, neighbors.
That's in Istanbul.
In Istanbul. Everything is in Istanbul, in Küçükpazar. And the neighbors, my younger sister, who was 18 months old, and I was about 3-4 years old. And then they took us and they tried to put us in a French nuns' orphanage, which is in Istanbul. It's the place called Bebek. It's a town called Bebek. It's a beautiful place. Anyway, so we were there. We were put there. We were well taken care of by the nuns and everything, my younger sister and all. And my older sister was put in the Armenian orphanage called Kalfayan. And so at that time, my mother was put in a hospital and she passed away. And then that must have been in, I don't know if I was born 94, 98, it must have been around 1930s sometime. So she passed away. She was about 29 years old, they said, 28, 29. Yeah. And then my father, 3 years we were in a French orphanage. Okay. It was beautiful. They took really good care of her. And we didn't know any other language except French. So then when my father would come and visit us in the orphanage, we couldn't speak with him because we didn't know any other language. Anyway, but he managed. So after 3 years we were with the nuns, the Turkish government interfered and said, these kids are Turkish citizens, they cannot be in this school. Because I started to go to school, to go to French school, which was very close to the orphanage. And I was about maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, I became. And then I started to go to school. So the Turkish government said, no way, these kids have to go to Turkish school or wherever. So then my father had to take us out. And we have a picture the day he took us out. And then three of us, he went to get from Kalfayan Hasmik. He brought Hasmik with us. And 3 of us, we have a beautiful picture that day. I remember that day. Anyway, my younger sister was 4 years old. And I was 6, 7 years old. And my older sister must have been 8, 9 years old. So then my father didn't know what to do with 3 of us. He had no wife, no place to live himself and everything. So Hasmik was in the Kalfayan, so she was okay. But Yevkin and I, Yevkin, my younger sister, we had a cousin, my father had a cousin, faraway cousin, that she became a good person and she took care of Yevkin, the little girl, my little sister. And then I stayed with my father. And those were really the worst years of my life. Anyway, my father had a place, like, I don't know what you call it.
Take a break for a second,
Yeah.
just so the chimes are done and start over.
Yes, for the voice, to get better voice, just
Oh, okay.
as soon as it will
Yeah,
finish.
it's okay.
It should be 11. Oh, 10.
Oh, with
we're,
the clock.
We're done, yes.
Okay.
And you
I'm
mean
sorry.
it was the hardest years of your
It was my hardest years because I was 7 years old, 7, 8 years old. And it's very sad because I remember those days. Anyway, so my father took me. I used to go with my father wherever he went, you know, and everything. And my two sisters, they were taking good care of them. But I was with my father. He used to live in a place like a I don't know, no windows, no nothing. It was just a little place, dirt on the floor and stuff like that. So he made a platform because the ceiling was very high. He made a platform and we had a bedroom up there, not a place to sleep, on the woods. And then we used to live there. And then he was so weak himself, so sick, that weak and everything, because probably he had tuberculosis at that time. And then he used to sit in the corner of that house and sell some black olives. He used to buy baskets of olives, and he would sit in the corner and sell the olives. And then I would play around him all the time. But it was such a bad place, you know. It was all the, I won't mention the names of the thing, Kurds or stuff like that. But Laz, you know what Laz is? No, it's another tribe. Anyway, so there were all these ignorant, uneducated, dirty people, and I was running around them, you know, all the time because my father is sitting in the corner and he cannot do anything, and I had nothing to do. So he would go to a coffee house sometime, sit down, and then he would take me with him, and he would say, you know, all the other men, they would sit down and they would have nargile, they call it. So he used to have nargile, and then they would bring him plates of lochum, and then they would all give it to me because I was a little girl, you know, around. So anyway.
They were helping too.
Uh-huh.
They helped too.
Yeah, a little bit of people, they were helping my father because they saw him, you know, with this little girl, you know. So anyway, I have to tell you a little story that one time there were some hills where we were, big hills, and on the hills there were lots of Greek families living there. And they saw my position, a little girls, 8 years old, 7, 8. They would take me and they would wash me up and they would clean me up and they would wash my underwears and stuff. And then one day I was playing with those kids on the street, you know, and suddenly the rain comes suddenly like a shower, you know, and all the kids ran to their home, and I didn't know what to do, so I ran to my father. I was soaked like a shower. Anyway, so the next day I come down with a very high fever. And my father didn't know what to do, so he put me up there on that platform. He put all the coats and everything we had on me. And then he said, you stay here, I go to the coffee house and I get some hot tea for you. So he went and got me a nice little hot tea with sugar in it, lots of sugar in it. And I drank that and I fell asleep and I was okay. Afterwards, I sweat out, you know. So that was one incident I remember with my father. Anyway, I was always with my father would say to me, what can I cook for you today? You know, he had a little gas stove, you know, that you pump. And then he said, what can I cook for you today? And I would say, you know, I only want olive, bread, and garlic. I used to love that. Oh, I still do. Anyway, that's all I used to eat. That's all I used to say. That's all I want. So that's what we used to eat almost every day. And then lots of bad things happened, but I don't have to go into it. Lots of, I was always running around my father, and those big dirty men, they were around there. They always wanted me to be with them. And so anyway, I survived. I survived those 3 years like that. And eventually, one day, those Greek people that they used to take care of me and everything, they took my laundry and everything, they washed it, and then they moved from Küçükpazar, they moved to a place called Çengelköy, which is a few things away, a few places away, by the sea, by the shore. And then my father said one day, Dikranouhi, let's go and get your laundry from these Greek people. They have all your laundry. Let's go to Çengelköy and get it. So my father and I, we walked, we took the boat. You had to take the boat to go there in Istanbul. Everywhere you go, you take the boat. And then we went there, and one of the Greek men who was in Küçükpazar first, and then now they went to Çengelköy, he opened a business for himself, a coffee house. And then I was sitting there playing around with the coffee house, and my father was sitting there and everything. And the guy who owned the coffee house, he knew my father, he knew his position. And he said, I know a very wealthy man, he said. He's sitting over there, he said. And he said, I have to ask them. He said, maybe they can take Dikranouhi and take care of her. So my father said no, but then he thought maybe it would be a good idea because he can't take care of me anymore. So there was a man, a very honored man, big, his name was Garabet. Garabet Ağa, they used to call it, because he was a great, well-known man at that time. And he would live in Üsküdar, which he would walk from Üsküdar. He was about 80 or 90, as I remember. And he would walk every day or whenever he wants, come to Çengelköy to visit people. So anyway, they introduced me to him in the coffee house. He was sitting there. And the Greek man said to Garabet Ağa, do you want a little girl to take with you, home? And Garabet Ağa said, no. He said, I have one daughter already at home, But then the Greek man said, oh, she's so cute and she's so nice. She can make you coffee in the mornings. And Garabet Ağa said, okay. He was a very kind man. And he said, okay. So they said to me, go and kiss his hand. So I went and kissed his hand, and he gave me a big Turkish 25, a quarter those days. They were big Turkish quarters, arzat, silver. And then my father comes at the end in the corner. He says to me, why don't you give me that quarter? I will give you other money. He needed that. So I didn't want to give it first, but then I gave it to him, and he gave me who knows what. Anyway, that was the day that I left my father. And with the Garabet Ağa, an old man and a little girl, hold hands by hands, and we walked from Çengelköy to Üsküdar. We walked up and down the mountains, the hills, and everything. So anyway, we come to Üsküdar, to Garabet Ağa's house. Nice house, big house. But he had a wife and a daughter, about 18, 19 years old, who also only sits down, and she's a seamstress, and she takes care of her parents. So when I came, the mother, Garabet Ağa's wife, her name was Gülümya Hanım. They were from Tekirdağ. I don't know if you know what. Anyway, from the Edirne side, from European side of Istanbul. And then she said, Gülümya Hanım said, why did you bring another mouth? She said, we cannot feed ourselves now. How are we going to feed her? And then Garabet Ağa said, whatever we eat, we can give her a piece to her. So that's the way I stayed with them for 3 years. 3 years. In the meantime, of course, her name was Bercui. The girl's name was Bercui. Bercui Kuyruk, I used to call her. She always, she tried to give me here to another family, thinking that they are much good for me. Then it wasn't good over there, so she took it back from me, and then she gave me to another family. So anyway, from family to family, 3 years passed like this in Üsküdar. And then I used to beg. I was about 10, 11 years old by this time. And I used to beg her, put me to school. I want to learn how to read. I used to beg her all the time. So she taught me how to read Armenian. And then I was reading by myself. And then eventually she said, she took me from a family because they weren't very good to me. So she took me from them, and then she said, I'm going to put you in a school. Oh, that was my best years. I was so happy. I was 11 years old, and she put me in the orphanage, an Armenian orphanage in Üsküdar, which that building today is Tübrebank. Did you ever hear about it?
No.
The Tübrebank in Üsküdar. There is a Tübrebank. And, but it was an orphanage before that building. It was a very run-down building and everything, but now they fixed it. I heard that Gulbenkian fixed it and everything. So anyway, she put me in that orphanage. It was beautiful. I was so happy. It was co-ed, children my age, and I was going to school from the orphanage. Every day we go to school. So 3 years like that, and then they decided they were going to close the orphanage because they couldn't keep it anymore. The Armenian community couldn't keep it anymore. So in 1938, they closed that orphanage. So in 1935, I went in school, and they put me in the first grade. I was 11 years old in the first grade. So 3 years I went to school, the school called Nersesian Yermonian School in Üsküdar. And that's building, I saw building a few years ago. Anyway, so then 3 years I went there, the orphanage closed. When the orphanage closed, they sent the boys, all the boys, to Karagözyan Vorpanot. There is a Karagözyan Vorpanot in Istanbul. They sent it to them. And the girls, they sent them to Kalfayan, where my sister was, my older sister was. So they sent it over there. So 2 years I stayed in Kalfayan Vorpanot. It was great. I finished 5th grade. And the school was only preliminary school, 5th grade. So I finished that. And then on the 5th grade, when I finished it, my sister was out of the orphanage because she was 18, and my younger sister was 12. So we were 3 of us, but I didn't want her to stay in the orphanage. I could have stayed in the orphanage because we had no place to go. By this time, our father was dead. And so I didn't want her to go. And I said to my sister one day, she came, and I said, I don't want to stay here. Take me out, take me out. 15 years old I was. Take me out. So she took me out, and she took my younger sister out, 12 years old, 15 years old, and she was 18 years old. And we 3 of us came together, and we each got a little job here and there, and we rented a room, one room. It was during the war. This was during the war.
Second War.
Yeah. You want to go on like that?
Well, yes, until the point when you moved to the U.S., how you moved to U.S.
Ooh, that's a long one. Well, okay, then I'm going to cut it short.
Yep.
Shall I cut it short?
Sure.
Yeah. Because we had that room in a place called Yedik Pasha in Istanbul. And then we were about a year like that. I was working in a factory. My sister was working in a little. And then she said, one day I said to her, I was always nervous. I was always wanted to go to school. But I was 15 years old, nobody,
1 second.
Shall we stop?
Yeah.
That's it. And then they said that, I keep wanting to go to school. Then I said to my younger sister, I said, Yevkin, I said, let's go to knock at the door of the German school. There's an Austrian school in Istanbul called St. George. And I said, let's go and knock at the door and ask them if they will take us as a student, and then we work for our student. And then she said, okay, let's go. She was 12 and I was 15. And so we went and we knocked at the door, and then Austrian nun came, and we said, what we wanted to do. And then they said, okay, wait a minute. She said, she went in there, she came back and she said, she said, one of you can go to school, but the other one has to work for her. So I thought to myself, she was 12 years old, she's younger than me, she can go to school and I work for her. So that's the way we did. 3 years I worked in that St. George Austrian school during the war. It was during the war. Well, in 1940, was it the end of the war?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Wait a minute. 35, I graduated, 35, 40, I graduated 40 from 5th grade. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. In 1944, it was the end of the war. And all the Germans had to leave the country because Turkish, they used to be allies. Turks and Germans were just to be allies. But at the end, the Turks turned against Turkey. So when they turned that way, then all the Germans in Istanbul, they had to leave, okay? So when they left, of course, the school closed, because the Austrian school became German school at that time because Hitler took Austria. Anyway, at that time, when they left, the school closed, so I didn't know, what to do again. We were here, 3 of us again in the middle. So my younger sister, she was helped by an Armenian, very wealthy person called Chakarian. They helped her. They said, if you work for us the weekends and everything, we send you to school. So she was taken care of. And I was, I knew German, very good German, because I learned from the Swiss. And then I said to myself, I'm going to do nanny work, because all the German nannies, they left. Rich people didn't have any nanny. So I took a lot of jobs, 6 months here, 6 months there. I did that. And then eventually I said to myself, no, I said, I have to learn things. I have to do things. I always wanted to explore, to go someplace. So eventually I said, I have to go someplace. So eventually I found from a friend that there is a place, a missionary hospital in Gaziantep, in Aintab. You know Aintab? Did you hear of it? So in Aintab, there's an American missionary hospital, and they take some girls, young girls, and they train them, and they teach them English and everything. Oh, I thought this was just for me, because they give you food, they give you a place to eat and everything. But I didn't even know where Aintab was. From Istanbul to Aintab, I didn't even know where it was. But anyway, I found out where to apply and what to do, so they took me in. Right away, I was 21 years old at this time, and I took the train. 3 nights and 3 days, we traveled by train to Aintab. And then in Aintab, they were very well, the missionaries, they were wonderful, wonderful to me. And there were lots of other girls like me, from Istanbul, from here and there. There were other girls. And I was in heaven. I was so happy because I was learning things, and I was learning English. That was the beautiful thing. And then when I stayed there, make it short, I stayed there 7 years. Every year, they gave us vacation, 1 month vacation to go to Istanbul, and if we wanted, we don't have to come back. But every time I go, I live to Istanbul, they keep writing to me, come back, we need you, we want you, because, a good worker, everybody wants a good worker. Yeah, the missionaries, yeah, American missionaries. There were 5 of them. They were very good people. And anyway, So every year I said, I wasn't ready to live in Istanbul because we had no place to live, no, nothing. My sister, she had a job herself. My younger sister was taken care of with this rich family. So I didn't know what to do, and I went back. Every time I went back. So 7 years later, I said, this is enough. I was 28 years old. I said, that's enough. I'm not going back anymore. So I came to Istanbul. And in the meantime, there was Dr. Shepherd. I don't know if you ever heard, maybe not. He's very,
Sounds familiar.
yeah, very, very. There's a book called The Shepherd of Aintab, which was written by his sister. Anyway, Dr. Shepherd was a surgeon. He was a director of the American hospital in Istanbul, not the one in Aintab, and which is not a missionary, the one in Istanbul. And then he knew me because Dr. Shepherd was born in Aintab, and he used to come and visit Aintab. So I used to work in the operating room, and he would operate people, and everything. And then he would see me, how I'm working, Then he said to me, then when I came back after 7 years, I went to Dr. Shepherd, and I said, Doctor, can you give me a job? I need a job. So he said, oh, yeah. He said, why not? You take my clinic, he said, and you'll be responsible for my clinic. So that's what I did. A whole year, I did it. I worked in a clinic, in his clinic, and in this American hospital in Istanbul. And then after a year, I just wanted to get out of Turkey. I just wanted to get out somehow. And they said that, I couldn't go out because I had nobody in the United States, I had nobody in Europe, I had nobody anywhere. So all I said, and then you could only go out of Turkey at that time without a visa as a tourist to England. That's all you could go. And then I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go as a tourist to England. So I made a passport, and I went to England, from France to England. And then it goes on. You want me to go on after that?
Just till the point when you...
When I came to... Okay, then I make it short.
1 second. I'm just going to do a spot check here. All right.
You want me to stop?
No, they're just checking.
Yeah.
It's always good to check the middle.
Yeah. That's good. How you feeling?
Oh, it's a great story.
Most people restart their times.
Yeah.
Because we never had anyone who actually who stayed in Turkey after genocide.
Who stayed in Turkey?
After genocide, we never.
Oh, yeah. I was there.
So you went to England from France?
In 1953, I left Istanbul by boat, a Turkish boat, with 100 Turkish lira in my pocket. I had nothing. And when I left, I hate to say this, but maybe I should say it. When I left from the boat, I said, goodbye, Turkey, goodbye, Istanbul. I hope I never see you again. I never forget that. But anyway, I was so happy all by myself. I had a passport as a tourist, so I went to England. And when I went to England, well, first of all, it's a quick story I'm going to tell you. I came to Marseille by boat, from Istanbul to Marseille, by Turkish boat. And when I left there, in Marseille, I had to take a train to go up to Channels, to British Channels. And then suddenly I discovered that my ticket, it doesn't include the train. So I didn't have money to go in the train to go up to there, So then there was an Armenian family by somebody else or somebody else. They came and met me in Marseille, which was a nice thing to do. I didn't know them, but anyway, that's another story, but I won't tell. And then they said, I said to them, I was stuck, I didn't have money, I didn't know what to do, I had to go to England. So I asked them if they can buy me a ticket. And I said, if I go to England, I said, whatever I can do, I send you back. I did send back eventually. So anyway, they were very nice, this family. They gave me the ticket and they put me on a train. So I come to Channel, Dieppe, a place called Dieppe. And then I cross the Channel and I come to Southampton in England. In Southampton, they pass you through immigration, right? And then I go to immigration and the guy says to me, why did you come to England? I said, I came as a tourist. I was very naive, you know. And I said, I came as a tourist. And he said, how much money do you have? I said, I don't have money. I said, I just have 100 Turkish lira, which I used it, part of it. And then the guy says, he laughed at me and he said, you came to a place like London and you have no money in your pocket, what you gonna do? Where you gonna? Oh, I said, I'm gonna work. Not knowing that, you know, a foreigner cannot work in a place. So he said, what you gonna do? He said, you know. I said, I'm a nurse. I wasn't even a legal nurse. I said, I'm a nurse, you know. But he said, do you know that? He said, a foreigner like you, he said, you can only empty the bedpans in the hospital or you can be a mother's help in a house. Or when he said that, I was happy. I thought to myself, I go and find a family and become a mother's help. So anyway, they gave me a month to stay in London. So I went in London, and then this friend of mine that I had only a telephone number, I didn't even know her from Istanbul, but I knew that she was there, and I had a phone number. And they said to me, where are you going now? I said, I'm going to this phone number. And they called that phone number, and the girl, she was nice enough saying that, oh yeah, we're waiting for her. And, you know, God's help. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
And then, so anyway, the girl, I stayed with her for a few days, and then after that, she said to me, I said to her, you know, I said, this can't go. I said, I have to find a job. I have to do something because I have to eat. And so anyway, the lady of the house that this girl was staying, I said to her, Mrs. McCarthy, her name was. I said, Mrs. McCarthy, I said, do you know anybody who needs a helper, you know, in a house with the children? She said, oh, yeah, I have a friend, she said, and she has 3 kids, and she needs a person to help her. So I said, can you take me over there? So she did. And she took me right there, and then this woman, her name was Mrs. Hazlitt, Marie Hazlitt. Wonderful, wonderful people. And she saw me and she said to me, oh, she interviewed me and everything. I said, yeah, I said, Mrs. Hazlitt, one thing I want to tell you, I said, I would like to ask you, I said, if you can extend my visa, my passport, because I said, they gave me only 1 month to stay. Oh, she said, don't worry about it, she said to me, I help you. So I ended up, she extended, the next day she extended for 3 months. So I stayed there 3 months. In the meantime, Mrs. Hazlitt, she was so nice, and she said to me, she was a nurse herself, American nurse. And she said to me, oh, she said, Dickie, while you're here in England, she says, and you said, I see that you love nursing, because I worked 7 years, you know, with the missionaries. And she says, I see that you love nursing. Why don't you go to school and become a nurse here? You know, registered nurse. I said, oh, I'm too old for that. By this time, I was 28, 29, 30. And then she said, no, she says, in the United States, married women go to school. It's nothing to it. I said, really? I can go to school? And then she found that school for me. She put me in that school, and my visa was, my passport was extended. 4 years I stayed in England, 4 years. And at the end of the 4 years, I graduated. I became an RN nurse. And then I said to myself, where can I go and settle? I could go anywhere I wanted to settle, even though I was a Turkish citizen. So I said, I'm going to go in either Australia or the United States. I go. And then I thought to myself, I have nobody in Australia, I have nobody in the United States. So I wrote in the embassies, in the immigration offices, and I wrote to the United States Immigration Office, and I said, I would like to emigrate to the United States. I'm a nurse, I just graduated, I said. And I said, is there any way you can tell me? I'm a Turkish citizen, I said, but I would like to emigrate. And they right away, they sent it to me, and they said, you can Uh-oh.
No.
Let me take one more.
It stopped, yeah. Now in 15 minutes it's gonna start
We're
again.
gonna have to put in a new disc.
Oh, we're almost done.
No, really,
Oh,
there's
okay.
only a couple minutes left, so.
Okay.
I'm almost done.
Yeah,